Back in the dark ages, around 1993, I worked for a medical transcription firm as their sysadmin. We were doing some cutting-edge IT stuff, in getting transcriptions printed at the hospitals remotely, using print queues with the modem number hard-coded in, and the system would look for queues with anything in them and dial the number if it found something in that queue. It worked really well, until it didn't. I was the only sysadmin in this city, so I was on call 24/7/365 and was averaging 3 hours of sleep per night, when I could go home, and trying to catch a little catnaps here and there when I could. Anytime something would go wrong on the hospital side, I would have to go to the hospital and fix it. A few months after I started, the two of the VPs from corporate relocated to my city, since we were the most productive city with the highest profits. The first thing they did was come up with an excuse to fire the current director, then they took over operations themselves. Then my job went from taking care of our systems to taking care of the doctor's computers too. I did what I could, but I was also sending out resumes. Then I was told to go to a hospital and see why the printing stopped. I remember this day. I hadn't been home for 2 days and had been going non-stop for 18 hours. I get there, someone had unplugged the modem. I plug it back in, call comes in and jobs start printing. This doctor walks over and tells me that VP number 1 told him that I would go out to his house and work on his home computer. I politely explain to the doctor that I can't do that, and that I'm heading home to get some sleep. Then I head back to the office to pick up a few things before heading home. As soon as I walk through the door, I get escorted straight to the VP's office. Both VP number 1, VP number 2 and the office manager are there. They proceed to start chewing me out. I just started laughing at them. I'm the only person in a 1,000 miles that knows anything about this system. They lose their temper and tell me I'm fired and am to leave immediately. I really said thank you. Then left. This was December 15th, my oldest son's birthday. On the way home I stop a mom-and-pop computer store where I know some of the people to drop off a resume. They tell me that they have no openings right now but will call me when they do. I talk to a couple friends while I'm there, then head on home. The only thing I'm worried about is telling my GF that I got fired. I walk through the door, she's at work. I see the answering machine blinking, so I hit play. Mom-and-pop computer store, our primary Novell engineer just quit, are you still available? I call them back and let them know I'll be there tomorrow. That began a much more peaceful career, with better pay, rotating on call and most every weekend and holiday off. BTW, the medical transcription firm imploded. The VPs were fired. They floundered for about a year and were bought up by a competing firm. Edit, thanks for the karma and awards and gold. You've all managed to quintuple my karma and make the dopamine center of my brain go crazy. TLDR, how I fixed the internet and got invited to Thanksgiving dinner. I'm a digital nomad, and I moved into a Airbnb, a garden apartment attached to a house, I'll be at for a month on Sunday. The Wi-Fi was crappy, low speeds, drops often. Now this isn't abnormal, especially when I'm staying outside the country, but I'm in Florida. This is especially confusing because there is a Google Nest Wi-Fi access point 2 feet from my laptop. I messaged the hosts about it, and they have no idea what to do, although they are very kind and know they need to fix it. In these situations I can either pretend I don't know anything about tech, and hope it gets fixed eventually, or try to be helpful. I go back and forth each time. But these hosts were rather nice, let me arrive a day early, and didn't charge me for it. Plus, I'm here a month, and would like good Wi-Fi, so I offered to help. I used to do IT support, but that was a decade ago. It's amazing how things never really change. They had a Nest mesh router connected to the cable modem, router, and 2 other mesh access points elsewhere in the house, which their son had set up. As far as everyone in the family was concerned, it was plugged in and there was a blue light, so it's working. Thus they were just confused why Wi-Fi sucked on both ends of the house. The host had even ordered a separate internet service for the guest quarters on the opposite side of the house from me, as service was almost non-existent there. When I saw the access point right by me and saw my crappy signal, my assumption was that particular access point had just never been set up. It turns out that all the son had done was plugged things in physically, and never actually set up the network. We were all using the default cable modem, router network. So, I set up the mesh network, advised them on placement and that they order an additional access point, then set that up. Speeds went from 10 to 150 Mbps at the edges of the house, and the network now covers the entire house and yard. The separate internet got cancelled, saving $60 per month. I then got invited to Thanksgiving dinner and to go dragon boating. Very sadly, I had other Thanksgiving plans, so I was not able to be tech support for the entire extended family yesterday. Although I still had to fix my mom's printer, ironically by rebooting their router. I work on an IT service desk and my partner works in a food shop. She was off yesterday and kept getting called by her manager. She answered on the third time and her manager asked, "How do I use this CCTV?" Bearing in mind this is a system that she could use multiple times a day and she's worked in that shop for a good few years now, so she should know exactly how to use it. She asked how to log on to it and my partner talked her through it multiple times. Turns out she was trying to log in as an admin instead of a user. Once she eventually got to the user login, she couldn't remember the password, even though it is and always has been the name of the shop ID number and a full stop. My partner reminded her of this and still after multiple tries she couldn't get logged in and saying the password wasn't working. She eventually got on after about 10 minutes and hung up my partner. She came and told me and I just laughed and said, "Yep. Welcome to my life every call." Hi. And #X200B. Sorry if this doesn't read like all the other posts on here. I'm new to posting, I was more of a silent reader. Also English isn't my native language. And #X200B. Anyway, I was recently asked by a friend of mine, let's call him T, to help a friend of him, I'll call him C, to install more RAM into C's computer. I asked no further and agreed. So while we were driving to C, I was talking to him and got to know that he thinks he bought 16 GB of RAM but his system was only showing up 8. I thought, okay, maybe this is just a misconfigured BIOS, nothing serious. As I got to his PC and got into the BIOS, I saw that the BIOS was only recognizing 8 GB of RAM. So I powered the machine off and took a look inside, to find two 8 GB sticks of RAM in there. Here is where it gets interesting. I took both 8 GB sticks out and put them back in. Then I powered the PC on and went into the BIOS again, to see 8 GB of RAM again. Then I was wondering if I myself installed it wrongly. As I've put the first stick out, I saw that I've put it in the wrong way, which many of you might know is impossible, so thought I then tried to put it in the wrong way knowingly to see if it would make a clicking noise. It did. I then took a deeper look inside the RAM slot itself and saw that C managed to put so much force on both the RAM stick and slot to put it in the wrong way. The notch inside the slot was pressed down. I then put it in the right way to see it clicking there too. So nobody would think this slot would have survived a misuse like that, because not only is it physically damaged but maybe electrically too. Every pin got wired up differently, so maybe also data swapped with power. But as I put it in the right way and booted the machine into the BIOS again, it was showing up both of the 8 GB sticks, adding up to C's full 16 GB of RAM that he bought. I then just configured XMP and booted into Windows, to find all 16 GB of RAM showing up and working correctly. He never had a problem since that. And #X200B. I think this story again shows how strong PC hardware sometimes can be. Let me know if you liked this story, I certainly did find it very interesting. Thanks for reading. Cast your eyes back a few, or more, years back to the time that cloud apps were the shiny new hotness. If you didn't have them, your company was a relic of the Stone Age, and could no longer sit at the cool kids table. Lol, some people actually believed that Dribble, including our chief sales officer, CSO. He'd seen an advert on the back of an Inch Flight magazine for this cloud app and instantly knew this was our ticket into the new age of business, exploding sales, stonks memes, and fat bonuses. And so he did what any reasonable person would do. Have a chat with the head of IT, me, about this awesome new application. Lol, wishful thinking. But he did organize a demo of the software with the C-suite and senior management team. At least that's something, right? Sometime later, we trundle into a conference room with our sleazy sales guy, and our cloud app sleazy sales guy for this demo. Through the demo, The ops manager leans over and whispers, "This looks like MS Excel." I nodded, not wishing to miss the good stuff. After the demo, nobody is especially impressed, except for our CSO. We just saw a half-developed online spreadsheet with some fancy graphics. But we're not finished yet. It's the CSO's turn to sell it, and we spend the next half hour being entertained by all the business applications he's got lined up for it. It's going to create a collaborative workforce, it's going to foster information sharing, it's going to enforce single source of truth, it's going to streamline business processes, it's going to be available anytime and anywhere, their support team can remotely help, and it's going to replace MS Excel. That's when the mic dropped. See, none of the department heads really cared until it impacted them directly. They all use Excel extensively, and what they heard was we were going to take it away and replace it with something shittier. Can we import our Excel files? Can we link sheets? Can we filter ZIS? Can we, and so on. And the answer was nearly always no, but that feature is on our roadmap. Until this point, I had been quiet. I'm a grizzled old IT manager. I've been through this, and seen how it plays out, and it was my turn to put the final nail in the coffin. So if this is cloud-based, where is it hosted? Singapore, the cloud sales guy replied. CSO, you do realize that a majority of the data you're proposing to host is controlled under license that doesn't allow for third-party access, and especially exporting from our country? It's a rhetorical question, of course. The discussion is over, and I'm closing my notebook and getting ready to leave. I've wasted enough time on this. CEO starts to thank everybody for their time. We're not going to buy the software. And #X200B. We've already bought the software. This is the project kickoff meeting. /mic drop / and #X200B. To be fair, my stunned goldfish expression is simply because the grizzled IT manager who's seen it all, has in fact, not seen it all. And #X200B. Cutting to the chase, our company of 200 factory workers and 70 engineers, office workers, etc. now had a subscription to 500 seats of this spreadsheet software. Why 500? That's the minimum commitment. Apparently. The annual cost of this license was about the same as buying Office Pro for every employee, 3 times over. Every year. And because it was a professional service, not software, the purchase wasn't flagged for IT review. Where did this money come from though? It was reallocated from a HR software project that we were going to commence in a few months' time, a headcount reduction, because improved efficiency, with the remaining supposed to come from canceling various MS software maintenance contracts that we obviously didn't need anymore. Hint, Office was a perpetual license without any SE. I'm still goldfishing, finance manager is having a heart attack, HR manager is having conniptions, and the CEO is looking like an axe murderer. But, as it turns out, we had the software. None of the managers wanted anything to do with it. They were still very attached to Excel and weren't going to volunteer to give it up. It was the HR manager who was voluntold. After all, her software project was now off the cards. But never fear, our cloud spreadsheet friend has personally guaranteed that his software will do the job. All we needed to do was engage his recommended third-party delivery consultant and they would spec up and quote for the design and implementation work. And that was our third drop of the afternoon. And #X200B. And #X200B. So how did this all pan out? Firstly, the CSO didn't get fired, but his name was mud for a few months. He did get fired later for something more egregious though. The headcount reduction came from the CSO's open positions, but after complaining bitterly, that burden was transferred to ops and the CSO went on a hiring spree. The consulting bill came in at about 5 times the original budget we had for the HR software project. It didn't work, and they went back to using MS Excel. Despite the finance manager's best effort, they couldn't fully reconcile, cover up, the financials and process loopholes and ended up getting a stink eye on their yearly audit. The budget cuts were eventually eaten by IT, of course. I did cancel the sales team's laptop refresh plan that year. I also made sure that the laptops I refreshed that year for other people were awesome. I'm pleased to report that it caused a whole bunch of jealousy drama. Petty and vindictive, I know. The subscription contract was for 2 years, and despite our commercial manager's best effort, we paid a second year. Ugh. and #X200B. Reliving that has given me heartburn. Enjoy.